Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I think we can start now for the sake of time. So welcome to this first GBEP webinar of 2023. There'll be the first in a long series of webinars this year hosted by GBEP. And this webinar specifically is on the alternatives to wood fuel for restoring forest landscapes. So we know that that wood fuel is the primary source of fuel for 2.3 billion people around the globe. But we also know that it has many negative sustainability impacts, and not least on forest landscapes. So we know that there's an urgent need to start transitioning away from this traditional biomass use. And this webinar is going to look at two case studies where alternatives to wood fuel can reduce unsustainable harvest, contributing not only to restore forest landscapes, but also to support sustainable livelihoods. The first case study is from our colleague at CIFOR-ICRAF, Himlal and Baral, who will be presenting some case studies from Indonesia. And our second case study will be coming from Ghana, from Professor David Millar from the Millar Insitute. So without further ado, I would turn the floor over to Himlal. I will stop sharing my screen so you can share your presentation. Over to you, Himlal. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thanks for the opportunity. So let me share my presentation. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So I'm very pleased to be here and share some of our work on bioenergy for landscape restoration and livelihoods. Based on our work here in Indonesia, not only our and also our partners' work. I am Himlal Baral, scientist at Center for International Forestry Research and World Agroforestry, CIFOR-ICRAF. So we work on most pressing issues related to forest and landscapes. So we work mostly on making landscapes and forests more resilient and benefits to people and the planet, which includes sustainable biomass and bioenergy production is one of our work. Here are some of the examples of our work on bioenergy. So we have many other examples, but these are the key books and papers I will be highlighting this morning. Bioenergy for landscape and landscape restoration livelihoods. This books encompasses around 14 different case studies from Indonesia. Biomass, bioenergy, and biomaterials is our decades of work by CIFOR-ICRAF on biomass and energy issues. And the third one is very recently just out of press is bioenergy sustainability in the global south. Some of the key points I will be making in this talk today is fossil fuel is a major contributor to the climate change, accounting some 80% of the global energy consumption, which we are well aware of. And abundant biofuel can be produced domestically, especially on remote and isolated areas that can be replaced a lot of fossil fuel while providing the job opportunities for local communities. And this livelihood and goal and restoration goal can be also integrated while producing bioenergy or biofuels. So this is just a very simple example that the countries like around the world and also many countries in Southeast Asia, they have their own restoration target. For example, in Indonesia, Indonesian government plans to restore 14 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. In the meantime, there is a huge demand for energy as mentioned in the introduction, so this energy demand and the land restoration can be integrated as a landscape scale. So while So biomass energy production can finance the restoration, and the product comes from the restoration can go for energy, which I will be highlighting in this talk. So forests and trees are vital resources upon which people rely on firewood, shelter, power, and etc. And as we know that more than 2.5 billion people use traditional biomass for either cooking or heating. In recent years, biomass energy is also can be modern form of energy, which I will be talking later in this talk. So this has a huge potential to replace the fossil fuel and also supporting the landscape restoration and livelihood. So there are a variety of reasons why we are more interested on bioenergy. So the energy consumption and demand is increasing in line with the global population increase. And the Paris Climate Agreement highlights the transformative change in the energy sector is the key to reach the global goal. And also the sustainable development goal is not possible. Sustainable development is not possible without sustainably produced energy. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that's why many government and also national and international organizations are highlighting the importance of renewable energy, more specifically biomass energy for to meet these global goals. This is just an example that how these the global goals and national goals can be met with using the degraded land for production of biomass. So that will lead to our climate and development goals. So we have been hearing these issues about food or fuel or environment conservation, or do we focus on sustainable development goals? So what we have seen, or what we have been working here in Indonesia, is if we design and manage appropriately, we can balance all of the issues within the landscape. So not one piece of land, but as a landscape approach as a whole. So this is what you can see, that the degraded land can be used to produce food, energy, and material as a landscape scale. So some of the questions, key questions, our work is how can sustainable bioenergy be developed to avoid food, energy, and environment trilemma with alternative feedstock while restoring degraded land? And what are the most promising species? If you say that, so what are the most promising species? And their characteristics and productivity, and also the environmental value, like when you produce those at landscape scale, what are the other issues in the landscape, such as use of water, and also social and economic issues associated to the communities. Here are some of our research sites in Indonesia where we have been testing this variety of cases using landscape approach of restoring land and growing energy species. Our work is mostly focused on reviewing and mapping policies, land availability, suitability of various species, farmers' choice, and establishing some research and demonstration plot. Not only the establishment, also working with the partners, what can be done and demonstrated at landscape scale, and also stakeholder engagement and capacity building and potential for scaling of those small plot or small landscape scale initiative to larger landscape restoration goals. So this is, I know you can't read this, but I will share this. Our book is available open access, where we have reviewed and synthesized the energy yield of various tree species. Some are suitable on very degraded, poor soil, degraded and marginal land conditions, and others are tolerant to waterlogging conditions. So we have potential solution for all kind of degraded land. So in this talk, I will very briefly highlight two of the species we have been exploring. Especially the organizer asked me to talk about, replacing the wood fuel, so using one of the promising species known as bamboo. The first species is, I will be talking about the Pongamia pinnata, which is a legume species which can grow on very degraded and marginal land. This is native to this part of the world and is pest tolerant, salt tolerant, drought tolerant, and also nitrogen fixer. So it can use for landscape restoration, but also multiple other goods and services, as you can see here. So honey production, food supplements, biodiesel, organic fertilizer, and so on and so forth. So I will not go on in detail about this species, but my focus will be on bamboo, one of the species which is being explored for biomass energy and landscape restoration tool in Asia and Africa. So this is the bamboo is the fastest growing plant on earth, providing multiple ecosystem goods and services. It grows very well on degraded and marginal land, and it's called vegetal steel that sequesters carbon. And it's a viable bio-based alternative for non-renewable carbon intensive, technocycle materials. So as this fuel characteristics of bamboo are compared, and it's suitable for traditional fuel as well as modern form of energy production. So these are some of the examples of the bamboo used as a fuel source from throughout the human history, and more recently it's used for modern wood fuel for electricity generation. So this is this is from our work from our partners called Clean Power Indonesia. So who is actively working to restore the degraded land for energy production, especially for electricity generation. So here is comparison of the conventional system in many parts of Indonesia, in rural and isolated locations. So the diesel fuel is transported in drums and trucks, and then burned to generate electricity, which costs somewhere between 30 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour. This kind of these systems can be replaced with renewable bio-based electricity generation using either bamboo or other biomass production, other biomass species such as Kaliandra, Glyceria, Leucina leucocephala, and then this biomass from energy production cost can be substantially reduced to like more than half, like 12 to 15 US cent per kilowatt hour. So as you can see here, it's not only the cost but also the opportunities to these peoples. Like if you burn the diesel fuels, the farmers or community groups get nothing other than paying the electricity bill. But if you use locally produced biomass and biomaterials, they can supply the biomass, and their electricity bills can be subsidized, and also they can make money out of the biomass sale. So this is one of the excellent example by our partners. So local communities can plant bamboo farming, so that will generate some employments, and that the biomass can go to power plant, generate the electricity, and it will increase, it will provide economic opportunities to the local communities. This is the first community-owned power plant is developed and demonstrated by our partners in a rural and isolated location in West Sumatra. So it's not only the energy, but it's also can be grown in climate smart agroforestry system. As you can see, the first few years, then you can grow this species with food production so that you don't have to, while you are waiting for biomass, the land can be, the farmers can get some income from agricultural products. So this is one potential models like we are exploring. That's bamboo for bamboo-based agroforestry or other agroforestry system that can produce biomass for electricity generation. Also, that the land can be used for food production, and then the biochar produced as a byproduct can be also put back to the soil and additional carbon sequestration or carbon storage in the soil. Bamboo also provide not only the energy, provide the multiple ecosystem goods and services, as you can see in these graphics from Batur UNESCO Geopark in Bali, where we looked at bamboo and multiple ecosystem services, and this provides a wide range of like food supply, raw material, freshwater provision, carbon sequestration, sediment retention, and so on and so forth. So a wide range of ecosystem services associated with bamboo has been published in our recent paper from ecosystem services from bamboo. So we have been also publishing this kind of work as a part of our work, like screening bioenergy potential from degraded and marginal land, spatial assessment of degraded land for biofuel production. And we also explore what are the farmers' perception, their interest on bioenergy and landscape restoration. What are the species? What's suitable? What doesn't suitable? Bamboo, which we just discussed. Integrating bioenergy and food production is using a species called tamanu or Calophyllum inophyllum. And these works has been published in a simple news article, which we call Forest News, so that the information is disseminated to a wide range of stakeholders. So some of the key issues from our work is there is a common myth that there's not enough land which we go for biofuel. So, but which is not true from our fact. There's a huge amount of land, degraded or underutilized land is available, which we can use for biofuel production. Similarly, so bioenergy can provide, like a bioenergy can destroy the native vegetation and lead biodiversity loss. That's kind of issues we have been hearing in many parts of the world. But our experience suggests that it's not true. Like in our case, like we can restore the degraded land where bioenergy can also improve the biodiversity at landscape scale. And also fuel is not always issue. If we design and develop or integrate bioenergy and food production at landscape scale, we can include both food and energy in or produce food and energy at landscape scale, so that the computation is not always an issue. Based on our work and lessons from this part of the world, like if we do appropriately, tree-based bioenergy production can be effective means to enhance food and energy security while supporting achievement of climate and development goals. There are a wide range of approaches and tools are available. So we talk at CIFOR-ICRAF, we talk like if we work on right crop in right landscape, we using the right business model and respecting community rights, the bioenergy production can also support the livelihood and restoration goal, and dissemination of best practices and identifying potential scaling up opportunity for these existing activities is our priority. This can be done through a public and private partnership, which we have been currently working. I will stop here, and I would like to welcome your comment and questions after probably the next speaker. Thank you. Over to you, Connie.
Thank you very much, Himlal. That was an extremely interesting presentation. I really like that final slide, the right tree, right place, right purpose. That's I think that's one of also in GBEP, one of our main things that we say is it's all context dependent. You have to have the right thing in the right place, at the right time for the right people. And so I really enjoyed that message. Thank you very much. We'll go on to questions. I see a few questions already in the Q&A, so feel free if other people have questions, feel free to write those in the Q&A, and we'll get to them after our next speaker for a discussion session. So David Millar is our second speaker. He's from the Millar Insitute for Interdisciplinary and Development Studies, and he'll be sharing with us a case study of grass briquettes in Ghana. Professor Millar, would you like to turn on your camera and share your screen? Can you hear us? Was there before? Professor Millar, can you hear us? No, we can't hear you. Second, let's see. One moment, I will just write to him in the chat and see whether we can. Okay, I think whilst we're waiting for Professor Millar, maybe Tiziana, if you would like to take some of the questions that we see in the chat for Himlal, whilst Professor Millar, we deal with some of his technical issues. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I can see some questions here. Do you want to read for all audience, or I can just go to?
Okay, let me read the first question, Professor Himlal, and for you. So the first question is coming from Mikal Daya. What ecosystem does bamboo trees thrive best? And the second question is, talking about agroforestry and crops compatibility, which crops is bamboo compatible with? Thank you
very much. Okay, let me tackle these first two questions, and then we can go further. I guess bamboo is mostly grow on tropical, any parts in mostly in tropical and subtropical environment. So it can grow any type of, as I mentioned, it's any type of blend. Like of course, there's a better soil and rainfall will have a better growth, but it can grow on any kind of tropics and subtropical environment. And especially in agroforestry systems, as I show you the image, that was I guess peas and like cereal crop. So I think first few years until the canopy covers, like first 5 or 6 years, based on our experience in Indonesia, also in India and many parts, 5 to 6 years, you can basically grow any type of crop for them. Then after that, the canopy will cover and you will start harvesting bamboo. So that's the agroforestry is which is first few years.
Okay, thank you very much. And there is another question is, trees take time to mature and provide the needed ecosystem goods and services. How are communities supported during this growth phase?
Okay, yeah. As you can see, that I know we didn't go very detailed about the ecosystem goods and services. So this is excellent species to restore the soil, the conserve the water, and then these and also the climate sequestration, like carbon sequestration or whatever we call climate goals. Like now it's increasing. So unlike any other species, growing bamboo And after a few years, when you start harvesting, you are not clear cutting the forest. You are only taking out some clumps, and then while the bamboo forest is there. So it's mostly it's great for carbon, what we call carbon farming, or carbon sequestration. But depending on the location or landscapes, so any type of goods like from food production. From raw material, you can make hundreds of thousands of products from bamboo. Like you don't have to send always to biomass production. If you plant and manage appropriately, the part of the bamboo can go for furniture or high value product, and rest can go for energy production. So it's just amazing plant. So you can get those kind of goods and services. We have actually a working paper available in CIFOR-ICRAF and also in BAR, International Organization of Bamboo and Rattan website. I can also share the link here, so which is ecosystem goods and services from bamboo forest, so which is global review of bamboo based ecosystem services, including energy there.
Okay, let me add one personal question. So what is the growing cycle for bamboo plants, in the sense of when you cut them, how long it takes to them to regrow and achieve a phase that they could be cut once again?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so the cutting bamboo is actually you are just harvesting. So as I'm just showing you here my thumb, like you cut this bamboo means you are not cutting the whole bamboo forest. So you're cutting this bamboo, but the other bamboo will be grow from the rhizome, like so. You are not cutting it's the same bamboo, like same clump you harvested, that will not grow, but it will coming from the new bamboo. But in terms of cycles, I would say around 4 to 5 years. So when you plant bamboo, after 4 to 5 years, you can harvest bamboo, and then every year you can harvest bamboo there, and your bamboo forest is still there.
Thank you so much. And I think that this answer brings us to the next question. Any insight on bamboo propagation? Is the best from seeds or vegetative?
Okay, that's a bit difficult question. Like vegetative propagation is what is best, like compared to, like if you want to quicker, like vegetative propagation is much quicker, and then if you want to grow after vegetative, so you can have bamboo forest quicker. From seeds it takes a bit longer, but I won't compare this which is best from my personal. It really depends.
I see. Thank you so much. And very last question, once again from my side, because this topic is very relevant, very interesting. So regarding water, we are growing, let's say, talking about growing bamboo in tropical and subtropical land. And so I don't think there will be competition for water in agroforestry systems. So what about the nutrients?
Nutrients. So what happens is bamboo can survive and grow in very poor soil, and after a few years, when the bamboo grow, its litter falls and decompose there, and it will make the soil, like better. It will improve the soil quality. But it's all, of course, it will also consume a lot of nutrients as it grows faster. So anything it grows faster, it will use more nutrient, more water, and like that.
Okay, thank you very much. I will have for you many other questions, but let's stop now from at this point, and let's give the floor to Professor Millar. Professor Millar. Thank you very much, Himlal. Professor Millar, the floor is yours. You can share your screen.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. I am handicapped this morning because my ICT technician is involved in an accident and he can't be here. And I don't have the skills for projecting on the screen. In fact, that is why I've been having problems with even connecting. I'm very naive or illiterate when it comes to this type of projection. So I'll just present my case, and I don't know whether that goes down well with you, Tanzania.
Sorry, can't hear you properly, but yes, if I got it right, you didn't have the slide to show.
You say?
I couldn't hear you properly, but let me know if you have, please, can you repeat, say it again? Do you have some problem in showing us the slide, or you don't have them?
No, my technician who would have shown this for me is involved in an accident.
Okay.
And therefore, I don't have, I can't show that. I don't have the skill to do it. Sorry. But I don't know whether it's okay to present my narrative.
Okay, you can, in any case, share with us your experience without any slide. It's perfect.
Okay. Well, I am a specialist in agricultural and natural resources, and I've served in various offices in Ghana up to national level. I was at the National Development Planning Commission, and all through my life and my work in the Guinea Savannah region, bushfires have been negative in impacting on climate, vegetation, water bodies, agricultural activities. Bushfires have dominated the scene in Guinea Savannah region since I was a child. So for me, it's not new that this nuisance has existed for well over the 60 years of my life and plus. And hence, when I became a professor, I said, well, what do we do to contain the wildfires that annually occur in Guinea Savannah regions? That has been my research agenda. What is it that we are not doing right, and hence we can't contain the wildfires? So the decision was to look at the various documentation and policies on bushfire. And I realized that all the policies attempt to solve a problem that the community don't perceive to be a problem. For example, they talk about planting of trees, and for them, that is not a major concern as far as bushfire is concerned. They talk about laws formulated that cannot be enforced. Then they talk about incentive structures for non-burning, which are also not working. So the incentives do not work, the policies are not working, and the people's perception and knowledge of the fire is not being addressed. So I went back to the drawing board and analyzed and realized that grasses are seen as a nuisance. And it is believed by the people that grasses will reoccur every year anyway. So during the off season, that's the dry season, the tendency is to burn the grass, burn it off completely. Now, in burning the grass, the fire ends up burning trees and shrubs. Note that the objective of burning is not to burn the trees and shrubs, it's to burn grass. Now, trees and shrubs become a collateral damage in the bushfires that occur when people want to burn grass. Also, water bodies get dried up. Carbon emissions into the air are higher. There's a lot of pollution. and there's a lot of distraction from the wildfires. So what do we do? How do we turn this situation around to motivate people not to continue in the practice? Hence the research. The research was now to find out how we can use grasses, the wild grasses that are growing in the savanna regions, transform them into charcoal, grass charcoal called briquettes, so that they replace the tree charcoal, or they run parallel with the tree charcoal, minimizing the effects of cutting trees for charcoal. We realized that in this endeavor, it will minimize the incidence of the wildfires and therefore minimize the effect the fires have on the climate, on vegetation, on water bodies, on even agricultural lands. And that is what we have been engaged in, just simply transforming wild grasses into grass briquettes that is used first as renewable energy in local communities. It also has become useful in transforming the renewable energy trade to be more gender sensitive. The women now are producing the grass charcoal, but tree charcoal is male dominated because of the energy required in cutting the tree and cutting it into pieces and charring and so on and so forth. So we have turned the actors in the trade from male domination to female domination. And whilst it's female dominated, it's also reducing the negative impact of these wildfires on the ecosystem, including fauna and flora negative impacts. All these are gradually coming down as the project progresses. Now, as a spillover of this research, because we are a research institute, we realize that the same principle can transform grass into grass paper, brown paper made from wild grass that is used for all the purposes that tree would have been cut and used to do the paper. So we can produce brown paper bags, brown paper boxes. We even can produce grass paper ceiling cards. All these are replacing or outcompeting the use of wood and therefore the cutting of trees and destruction of the vegetation. We have gone further to start experimenting on the use of grass to purify small-scale mining water bodies, the heavy metals. We have the grasses that can absorb heavy metals. And when we introduce grass charcoal with grass grown on those water bodies, the purification level is enhanced. Now, from the grass paper, we are able to produce paper bags that are reducing the use of plastics, because we all know what the plastic pollution rate is in these parts of the world. It's extremely high. So now that we are having an alternative, then all the laws that are enforcing the ban on plastic waste would not be very necessary anymore, because there will be an alternative to plastic waste, so that when somebody abuses that, then the law can take its course to the fullest. We are also looking at charred grass used as biochar for soil fertility. We have a lot of gardening and small farms in the area where we are located, northern Ghana. And we are beginning to realize that biochar is a convenient alternative for soil fertility improvement other than chemical fertilizer, and even sometimes faster than organic matter that has to take time to decompose. So we are beginning to introduce biochar of grasses into soil fertility improvement for gardening and for small farms. Recently, we are starting a project of the conservation and preservation of shelf life of vegetables, particularly tomatoes, using grass charcoal as absorbance and as coolants. So here we are using grass charcoal as a wall that keeps the vegetables away from the environment. And once they are moist, they are able to lower or control the temperature of the vegetables. And we know the charcoal effect, charcoal has a bacterial reduction effect as well. So it also enhances the quality of the vegetables, especially for tomatoes. So there are a series of fallout from just starting with the bushfire agenda. So grass is now becoming a commodity, a very essential commodity. And if the scale of this endeavor expands, grass will become a major income earner for the ecological zone where we find ourselves. That is our target. Now, we need a few leverages to be able to attain this. One is the policy dimension, and we are gradually gaining policy inroads. We've had some pronouncements by well-placed and well-meaning policy officials about this grass charcoal event being a key alternative. We are yet to factor that into national discourse and leverage it further. So this is where we are in terms of the grass charcoal briquettes program. First, tackling the bushfire issue, which has multiple effects, then translating that technology into managing plastic waste, managing polluted soil water bodies from small-scale mining, enhancing vegetable conservation, enhancing soil fertility improvements. So we have about 6 to 7 projects that are emanating from this endeavor. I think I will stop here, and if there are questions or any further elaborations, I will do that.
Thank you so much, Professor Millar. You gave us many ideas and many interesting views on how, on the different benefits that could come from grass briquettes or from wild grass management more in general. I found very interesting the production of grass char and charcoal, and I would like to ask you, do you have a specific type of stoves or cook stoves? I don't know, what is the type of tool that you used for burning this grass charcoal to get at the end the biochar that you mentioned? Do you use a small microgasifier, for instance? Do you have, and these microgasifiers are available for smallholder or for women, for instance, for cooking? What is the tool that is used? Thank you.
Yeah, you know, this technology can operate at different levels, but we start from the grassroots level. So we are working with the stoves that the grassroots have. And it's a simple metal stove that has some grill just to contain the charcoal. Now, this is the basic equipment that is used at the grassroots level. And since we are starting there, that is where we are. Now, if you move from the rural communities and come a bit peri-urban, they use the same metal stove, but with a sieve covering the top. And the sieve is to separate the heating material from direct contact with the charcoal. Now, that technology exists. If you come to the urban centers, there are these improved stoves. There are other NGOs that are marketing improved stoves. So all we are supplying to this stove is the energy that is emerging from the glass briquette. It goes on and on. even at the rural level, where the coal pot is not being used, but they use 3 stones placed in like a tripod and cook on it. We are developing longer breakers that you can use like firewood. You push it under the stone and it heats the material as well, with the pot sitting on the 3 stones. So for us, since the wildfires emanate from rural small communities, our primary objective target is that group. And since the male activity of bush charcoal is the major cause of the wildfires, we are shifting the emphasis to women-controlled renewable energy that has less need for the trees, because the women cannot cut the trees with the axes. They can't chop them, they can't do the heat. So you see that it's becoming more environmentally friendly and more gender friendly, and a technology that best fits rural communities as a starter. But there are various other equipment you can add to enhance it for urban and city level energy production as well.
Thank you so much. I also want to ask, so what do you think that is the most important benefit among the one that you listed? Because I'm thinking, for instance, the control of the wildfire is for sure one of the most important. In my opinion, I guess, I mean, because you control the wildfire and you save also the farms that are around the savanna, and you can also control. I think you cut also the bushes that are in the land, in the savanna land. So beyond this, what is your opinion? If you have to choose among the many benefits, what is the most important at local level?
For us, the most important is the wildfires, the bushfires, so to speak. For me, the rest are spin-offs of that. And as a professor in the area, this is the one task that we don't have a solution to. Not only in Ghana, but the Guinea Savannah as a totality. Also for Sudan Savannah and the coastal Savannah. All those regions are suffering from wildfires. And now gradually the forest zones are beginning to fall victim to those same fires. So for me, my preoccupation has been to provide an answer to the fire situation. Now, as a researcher, I now look at the other implications that might encourage multiple stakeholders. Because some will say, well, wildfire is good for climate, for vegetation, for environment, even for carbon emission and for carbon sequestration. Because the research has shown that grasses sequester more carbon than trees. There's a lot of evidence of that if you look at the literature. So even to manage the carbon equation, grass formation should be the entry point, not trees. And if you calculate trees, you will leave out the Guinea Savannah zone because they don't meet the carbon equation for tree population. We don't have the trees, but if you factor in grass, and that's what we have been pleading with FAO to push in the carbon calculation, the carbon economy, also push grasses. And I'm sure you will be doing it a lot more. But if you stop at the tree population calculation, you would leave out a critical mass of the people who are even responsible. Well, now, after you planted your trees and you even have regenerated some indigenous species, the fires will come along and destroy them. And then you have done nothing. Or you have one season of success with trees, and when the fire comes along, the next season you go negative or even zero. So for me, all these carbon discourses are centered around managing wildfires. So for me, that's number one. And I've been doing this for several years, and I found out that is the way to go. The rest are just suggestions.
Thank you, Professor Millar. I have just another question from my side, and I want to ask you: there is already a market for these grass briquettes in Ghana, or and what is the price compared to the traditional charcoal?
Yeah, in terms of the market, since it's a pilot, I must say the potential market exists, but the actual market is still very small. That is the starting point. Now, in terms of production cost, because the tree is seen to be free, meanwhile, the grass has a cost element. The relative cost of tree charcoal will be cheaper. So what they are doing is to challenge policy alternatives. There are policy or pricing alternatives we can do that will leverage the grass charcoal. In Ghana, we have done it for liquefied petroleum gas. Initially, it was not in the market. Then policy alternatives supported that. And now the market grew. People are now used to liquefied petroleum gas. So giving whatever tax you put on it, people still go to buy. But since this one is really, the grass charcoal is relatively new, unless there are policy support and pricing systems to leverage it. For example, the production cost could be $100 per 100 kilo. But they could have a policy that says, so instead of using all this money for workshops and so on, let's subsidize it and make it $50 per 100 kilo. Meanwhile, we know tree charcoal sells at $80 per 100 charcoal, 100 kilo charcoal. When you create this policy pricing alternative, consumers are rational. They will make the choices. And you can now gradually introduce the realistic tax element to sustain the enterprise. Once the enterprise grows, then you can leverage from it and make all the gains. But as of now, they say it is very limited. But where we have introduced it in communities, FAO supported us to pilot 5 communities. Rocha is now supporting us to pilot 3. In those 8 communities, the choice is very clear, especially since the women are now empowered to take over the control because they are the energy users. Meanwhile, the energy comes from the men. So they are not free aside to use the energy the way they want to use. So that is what I'll say. But to answer your question directly, right now our calculations show that the cost of the grass charcoal is a bit high. It's about 20% higher than the tree charcoal. And the glass market is still unexplored because it has not been leveraged to that level.
Thank you. Very clear, Professor Millar. So once we have the full framework, let's say, we can ask, I mean, you think to ask for policy support for the production and of the grass charcoal and for spreading of the technologies and the use of charcoal and also of the equipment that will be used for burning this grass charcoal. And there is another question. What is the energy efficiency of these grass briquettes or grass charcoal compared to other alternatives? And let me add, does this energy efficiency change with the different type of equipment used for burning the briquettes?
Yeah, I would answer that. But before I answer, let me emphasize that the competition between the choice for grass charcoal and tree charcoal is not along the energy line. It's along the climate destruction line. It's for the climate part. It's not the energy. The energy comes as an incentive or motivation for action. So we have always said that the purpose of the technology is not to outdo tree charcoal, but to deal with the effects that are even precipitated by tree charcoal. But having said that, the energy efficiency levels are different. For example, if I'm going to compare tree charcoal and glass charcoal, the tree charcoal burns faster, but has a shorter lifespan. It burns out quickly. The energy content is higher from tree charcoal, but the energy life is shorter from tree charcoal. The grass charcoal, the energy content is lower, but the energy lifespan is longer. So if you want to cook food that takes long time to cook, you better use grass charcoal. And for rural communities where women have multiple responsibilities, they want to put food on fire, they want to take care of their children, they want to take care of their household. So they have multiple attention. The grass charcoal better serves that because the food won't burn, it will be simmering. The energy content is lower, but the duration is longer. So you leave it there, and the woman can go around do all the other jobs and come back to it, and the food will still be. It's like a microwave, so to speak, the grass charcoal. But the tree charcoal is a furnace, it burns. So there are those energy preferences. So if you want quick burning, short lifespan in terms of energy, go for tree charcoal. If you want slow burning with a longer lifespan, go for grass charcoal. Look, a set of grass charcoal briquettes can stay for more than 3 hours as fire. It smolders, it makes ash. But once you blow off the ash, you get flames again. You only need to push the briquettes around, the ash drops, then the energy comes back to fruition. But the tree charcoal is not like that. And we've now also realized that the grass charcoal, you can light it without an accessory. For the tree charcoal, you need another fuel base to light it up. Sometimes they use paper, sometimes they use gasoline or use kerosene to start it. But the grass charcoal, immediately you put flame to it, it starts burning, but it burns gradually. So those are the energy differences we have encountered. But we think both should be there as options in terms of the energy mix. But if you are seriously thinking about climate and maintenance and regeneration of the savanna zone, please don't encourage tree charcoal, because now they've exhausted the contemporary trees for tree charcoal production and have gone into the economic trees. One of them is share. Share is now being harvested for tree charcoal, which is a big disaster if it's allowed to happen. So that is what is happening. So I always argue that we are not in days to say, oh, energy-wise, grass charcoal is the best. We say they all have their strengths and weaknesses. But when you go to the climate side, that is where the scale tilts. And then you have more of the benefits of the grass charcoal and very little of the benefits of the tree charcoal, even between tree and grasses. So that's why we start the comparison from tree and grass. Which one better manages the environment? Which one regenerates faster? Which one manages the water systems better? And so on and so forth. So we start from the base material and show the differences. But as for energy-wise, we haven't made a categorical position. We haven't taken a categorical position on that. But I must say something about the policy, because currently we have received attention by FAO. One of them is this we are doing. We have also received attention by ROCHA, which is also an international organization. And currently ILO has come to discuss with us the possibility of other uses of grass charcoal. So more
It's a pity, it seems that we lost the connection with Professor Millar. So while waiting for Professor Millar to reconnect, I would like to ask Himlal, if possible, to tell us something about the, have you experienced also the production of briquettes or improved feedstock from bamboo? And if you have some experience with biochar production from bamboo, as Professor Millar said. It is, for instance, it has been in Ghana with the grass.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, there is a lot of materials available through our partners called INBAR, International Organization of Bamboo and Rattan, so about bamboo-based briquette. But we have, but myself and my team is not involved. So probably our colleagues in Africa, they're involved in bamboo, but I'm not involved in this bamboo-based bio briquette production.
Okay, thank you.
Our work is mostly on that, that's what I presented in the little bit earlier slides called multiple of the liquid fuel, the multi-purpose species such as Pongamia pinnata, Calophyllum, Inophyllum, Camirisunan, and those kind of species. Bamboo is mostly, we are working with our partners here in Indonesia, as I mentioned, Clean Power. And now we are currently working on a large restoration initiative in Nepal using in bamboo, like they call 10 million bamboo initiatives. And I also share the ecosystem services from bamboo and other useful materials through the chat. Hopefully you got it.
Can I ask a question on the bamboo?
Professor Millar, welcome back. Yes, of course. If you have also some experience from bamboo in Ghana, charcoal, please, we would be most than happy to hear.
Yes, there is an NGO in the south of Ghana working with bamboo briquettes. So that doesn't exist here in northern Ghana. But I want to ask about northern Ghana because we have recent indications from funding agencies of also establishing bamboo plantations, and they want to use the bamboo to manage the carbon question. But the bamboo plant itself will belong to the community. That's the line arrangement. So we will now have to decide what we are going to use it for. And I know we would be thinking about it being used also as briquettes. But what are the pitfalls with bamboo production? Because when I read about it, sometimes it's mentioned that it has a tendency of lowering water table beyond availability for other agricultural activities. So I would like to learn from my colleague, what are they really, so that we prepare ourselves when we are engaging with this type of donors properly. Is my question clear?
Professor Millar, can you say it again? Can you repeat your question to Professor Himlal, please?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that there are recent efforts to help us establish bamboo plantations, but we don't have the experience. So I'm asking my colleague, what are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the challenges? Because his presentation is fine, but I read somewhere they say bamboo has a tendency of lowering water tables beyond availability for agriculture. What are some of these challenges that we need to be aware of?
Professor Himlal, have you heard the question from Professor Millar?
Yeah, I heard, but it was not very clear. So I missed, the voice was broken. So can you repeat?
He asked for the challenges in introducing bamboo production cultivation. Which are the main challenges that farm can tackle, should tackle, let's say, when starting producing bamboo? I guess
Okay.
they are very related to the context, but please share with us.
Exactly. So the challenges are mostly context specific. I know some part of the world, maybe the financing can be issue, like who provide the quality seedlings to the farmer or community groups or whoever want to plant bamboo. That's availability. Some part of the world, like there are organizations, government authorities or other organizations are supporting those initiatives, and other parts of the world that's not available. Another issue could be the market. So when you produce, as I said, we have this bamboo can be used for a wide variety of products and services, but there's a market may not be readily available everywhere. So that's could be another challenges. Planting what we call this right bamboo species, as I said, right tree and right space, like the right kind of bamboo species may not be available everywhere. I guess those are the things, but more kind of training and capacity buildings to the interested community groups, that's or smallholder farmers. I guess these are the possible challenges, maybe.
Can you intercrop bamboo with food crops? Because I saw only pure stands. So can you mix in the agricultural system?
Yeah, I know. So that's what I replied this bamboo intercropping, bamboo agroforestry. The information is actually in my response, the answer to some of the colleagues' questions. So, but technically, you can grow any species for the first few years. I would say around 4 to 5, in some cases 4, 5, 6 years. So until the canopy close, and then when the bamboo grows both sides, the canopy close, and then you will not have opportunity to grow other crops, Professor. That's a wide range of materials available about bamboo agroforestry for the first few years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Himlal. And then now let me give the floor to Mika Ildiada from one of our attendees. Mika, can you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you. Please share your question.
Yes, my question is to Professor Millar. I'm sorry about your IT staff, Professor, and I wish him a quick recovery. So my question is, what type of grasses are ideal for this grass charcoal?
Yeah, scientifically, any grass will do. Locally, to any grass we have tested has done. But the quality of the briquettes differ from grass to grass. The taller grasses, like the Guinea grass, the elephant grass, they are the ones that produce better and long-lasting briquettes. The shrubs and lower grasses produce softer and quick exhausting briquettes. But in order to produce good briquette, you don't mix them. But when you mix them, you still will get briquettes anyway, but you get the quality overlaps. So if you want quality, long-lasting, marketable briquettes, then go for the taller grasses, Guinea grass, elephant grass, giant star grass. Those type of grasses are the ones that do that. But if you just want any briquettes in order to have energy use out of it, then all the other grasses do as well.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I now understand better.
Thank you very much, Mika, for your question. And let me thank you, professors, because you gave us a very interesting, you shared with us very interesting experience and knowledge. We have heard not only today about bioenergy, to be honest, but also about ecosystem management at this point, because in one case it is for adding value to abandoned land, and in the other case is the capacity to manage savanna and reduce wildfires. So we have heard also about experience of bioeconomy, because Professor Millar shared with us experience of producing paper from this type of alternative biomass, and this is really very interesting. And we heard about circular economy with nutrients replenishment through the use of biochar, and women empowerment as well from the production of these new type of briquettes. But the most important, it seems that our speakers learn from each other because we exchange views, and Professor Millar found very useful the experience from Indonesia about bamboo. So I think really that we have done a very good job, and thank you very much to both of the speakers. And now the floor goes to my colleague Connie. Connie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tiziana. I think you said everything that we needed to say. Thank you again to both of our speakers, and also thank you very much to Tiziana, the coordinator of the Global Bioenergy Partnership, for moderating the discussion and the questions. And we hope to see you again in another GBEP webinar soon. You will all be receiving after this the recording and also the presentations. We'll make sure to also receive David Millar's presentation so that you can all receive that. And we'll also send you information on our future upcoming webinars. So thank you very much again, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you
for
Professor.
the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a good day.